With two of the most popular cities where people are moving in the nation, I felt it was only fair if we brought you some perspective from people in the area or around the area. So today, we're bringing on, living in Phoenix, Arizona, Greg Corbett. Check out his YouTube channel. And I'm going to be talking to you guys a little bit about Phoenix versus Denver. What's up, everybody? My name is Patrick Soukup with Soukup Real Estate Services here in Fort Collins. And if you're new to the channel, please consider giving it a subscribe if you are looking at learning everything there is to know about Northern Colorado, Fort Collins, Colorado, and even Denver. So today, we are bringing at you a little bit of a battleground between Phoenix and Denver. And if at the end of the video you've enjoyed the content, give it a thumbs up. And without any further delay, let's jump into today's video, Phoenix versus Denver. Enjoy.
All right, so joining me right now is Patrick Soukup with Soukup Real Estate Services. He also runs the Living in Fort Collins YouTube channel. Patrick, what's going on, man?
Hey, thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, I think this will be fun. So obviously, we're talking Phoenix versus Denver, but with Fort Collins being close by, I think you can speak to Denver as well. I think there are a lot of things that we can get into that I think people would like to hear as far as just lifestyle between what it's like in the Phoenix market versus the Denver metro and Fort Collins, that type of thing. We're going to kind of go through a few questions. I'll kind of lead this one here and kind of ask a few questions. I think it'll feed into what people really want to know about. And we'll have some fun with it. I don't think it's a sales pitch either way on either town. It's just trying to guide people on what's better. So hopefully we can have a little fun with it. But the first thing I wanted to ask you was, when you just think of Phoenix versus Denver and Fort Collins in general, like what's the first thing you think of?
Yeah, so I've been to Phoenix a few times, got some family that, have property down in Scottsdale. So I've visited, as I know you got great experience in Northern Colorado yourself. So it'll be a really fun conversation that, we can kind of parlay off of each other's not brief, but, minimal knowledge of each individual market. For sure. But when I, first think about it, Phoenix is so sprawled out and it's just this huge community. And as is Denver with different, Aurora, Centennial, just different Greenwood Village, just all over the place. And then up north, you got Fort Collins, and just two communities that have, millions of people plus. Obviously, Fort Collins is much smaller than that, but, major metro, professional sports teams, high tech scene for both, and growing, pretty quickly on both sides.
Well, it's interesting too, because like Fort Collins is probably just an hour outside of Denver. So it's not like, even though it's probably not considered part of Denver Metro, it's pretty close. And so anybody who's considering making a move to Denver, I think probably you would want to have Fort Collins on your radar as well. And, I think a lot of this might have a little focus on Fort Collins, number one, because I grew up there and I like to talk about it. Obviously, Patrick's based out of there too. But I think for people who are looking at Phoenix versus Denver, you're gonna get the same idea from this video on what we're talking about.
Definitely. Well, even just this year, I had two clients that they looked to Fort Collins, but actually ended up going to Denver for one reason or another. One client was that they were going to go be on the board of directors for an arts college out in Denver. So that area in Highlands Ranch made more sense for them than Fort Collins. And then the other was just, they kind of wanted a more active scene. Fort Collins is definitely more laid back, slower paced type feel, whereas Denver, you're going to Rockies games on a Thursday night because it's only a few blocks away from you, and going to plays and theaters and Elitch Gardens, Six Flags. So yeah, I think if one's looking at Fort Collins, they're also looking at Denver, and vice versa. And really, they're just trying to feel what vibe fits them better. Do they want that like more laid back lifestyle, or do they need the 5-star restaurants that, Michelin type, not that Denver has them, but Michelin type restaurants that Fort Collins just doesn't have, or doesn't have the population to, allow for that to be here.
It makes sense. It's very similar to what we have in Phoenix as far as the Metro Phoenix area and all the surrounding cities of Phoenix. And even though Metro Phoenix is so sprawling and spread out, from one end into, if you're up in the northwest corner of Peoria and Surprise, trying to get to Central Phoenix, about 45 minutes. Same thing with the southeast. If you're in like Queen Creek, the Santan Valley area, the east side of Mesa, getting into Central Phoenix, about a 45-minute drive. So I think there's a lot of similarities there as far as getting into kind of some of the central areas that maybe have some of the sporting events, some of the, most popular shopping, dining experiences, that type of thing, even though there's a lot of really cool things that each area has to offer as well. So I think we have that in common quite a bit. Talk about some of the things that, because I think a lot of people just like are looking at both and like, how does my day-to-day lifestyle look for myself or my family? If you've got a family, if you got kids, like what does that look like? So for you, you're married, have 2 kids and one on the way. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And really, that's the common denominator when people are looking to move to Fort Collins or Denver. It's really a lifestyle design. They want to be able to go out their door and within 15 to 20 minutes be in the mountains, whether that's hiking, tubing, rafting, mountain climbing, whatever that might be, out in the sun. We don't have as much sun as Phoenix, Arizona does, but we do have,
to your benefit sometimes.
Yeah. We do have a significant amount. And so people can get outdoors. We've had a phenomenal fall, and just really people trying to live a healthier outdoor type lifestyle. And that's, from people coming from Georgia, whether it's too hot and humid there and they want to be able to go out during the summers and not get eaten alive by mosquitoes. But I would say the drive to be able to be outdoors, riding your bike, food trucks, going outside and going to the parks, walking your dogs, walking in safe, secure neighborhoods, is really probably what the lifestyle and why, people are looking to Denver. And that's kind of what their day-to-day looks like is, working from home these days and then going out for a walk with the dog for a couple hours.
Well, and it's funny because as you go through that conversation, it's a lot of the same conversation that we have people about moving to Phoenix because, it's the same people are like, hey, I want to be able to get outside. I want to have an outdoor lifestyle. And we have a lot of that here as well. Obviously, the extreme heat in the summer causes people during the day not to want to be out and about, but it's just 2 different environments. So you've got the desert kind of activities here where you can get out and about and enjoy all sorts of different things. And then, in Colorado where you've got a little cooler climate, especially during the summer where you can get out and have, just different things to do. I think you probably have a lot more of the stuff with maybe the lakes and the rivers and stuff like that. I mean, we do have a little bit of that here, but probably not to the same extent. Obviously, the mountain areas in Colorado are completely different from the mountain areas here in Arizona. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of the same conversation. People are like, hey, I'm looking to get away from this particular climate and I want to be where I can be out and about. I can be riding my bike, hiking, going wherever at any time.
Yeah. And people can pretty much be out where you're at, 365, and which is awesome. There's definitely those times where we get, just cabin fever here when we do have like a long cold stretch. We could easily have 70 degrees in December, which is happening this week. Yeah. It's been a crazy warm fall for us.
Our temperatures today.
Yeah, it's been awesome. But then we'll have come January, February, we could have easily 10 to 14 days of sub 32. And even when we have those like polar vortexes that come around and sit on top of Fort Collins and it drops to -10, -14 degrees, I can tell you during those times, people are itching to get to a place like Phoenix, in Arizona. And they're like, what am I doing here? Like I said, I've got family here and, he's got a house here and he's got a house in Scottsdale and when he's here, and I know him, we stay very close. And when he's here during those -10 degrees, I'm like, isn't this the exact reason you have a house down in Scottsdale and Phoenix is that you don't want to be here during these -10 degrees? What are you doing? Get out of here.
He's doing it right. You got to have a little bit of mix of both. I mean, I'm like that too. I like to have a mix. It's like, I like my nice weather all the time, and I kind of like to have the cold weather, and especially during like the seasons and stuff like that. You get the holidays, you're like, I want to be able to kind of throw on a couple layers here and there. So
Speaking of
having a
holidays,
house in both places is the correct answer. Really, we should just
yes.
end the video right there on that.
I agree. I agree. That's the life right there. Now, question for you real quick. You just spoke
Yeah.
holidays, and I'm curious. So with Christmas coming up and the different holidays that are coming, does it are you guys able to easily get into the spirit with it being 75 degrees, 80 degrees, or how does that look for you guys?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I actually did a video on this recently too, because when I moved from Colorado, growing up in Fort Collins, moved down here like my junior in high school, like the first, I think the first year or two, and it depends on where you're at in your life when you make the move. But so if you've had the majority of your life where you've been stuck in snow and cold climate forever, and you're kind of coming into Phoenix and it's sunny and warm, I don't think you care. I think you love it. You're like, I don't care about the seasons anymore. It doesn't matter. But for me, I thought it was interesting because I missed the seasons. I missed the fall colors. I missed that air scent where you're like, you just know that first snow is coming. There's certain
Oh yeah,
I really
you're
missed
right.
when I moved down to Phoenix, and then like, Thanksgiving and Christmas and I was like, it doesn't feel like it to me at all. Like it just didn't feel like the holidays. Now I have a little one, so it kind of changes things a little bit now. So because like once you have kids and you find ways to like make it feel like the holidays, and Arizona does a good job of like trying to do whatever we can to like put out as many lights out as possible to decorate and make it feel like a holiday season, even though people are out by the pool while they're looking at Christmas lights. So it's interesting. It depends on who you are as far as if it's going to affect you negatively or not. But I know it did for me. But I talked to other people about it, and they're like, we don't care.
It's funny you say that with the little one, it definitely changes things because I am by no means a Grinch. Like I mean, I love my holidays. I love getting together with family.
That's not what I heard.
Love the cheer. Yeah. But we're going to California because that's where my in-laws live. And we're going to California. We leave on the 22nd, get back like the 29th. And I was not going to put up any Christmas decorations. I was like, why? We're not going to even get to enjoy it on Christmas Day. And my wife looked at me like, I don't think you even have a choice. We're putting up Christmas lights around the house, and we are doing a Christmas tree.
That's a movie, isn't it? Christmas with the Cranks or something like that? I swear I saw that movie.
You're right. Actually, that is a movie, and so we got Christmas lights up. No injuries, no bad feelings, nothing like that. So we're all good.
Yeah, no, it's different now. I will say this: like once January 1 hits, New Year's hits, that's like when it's the best here because you don't care about the holidays anymore. The weather's perfect. Like everybody else, like it seems around the country is dealing with the coldest weather, the snow, they're buried in something, they're dealing with all sorts of crazy storms. And when you don't have the holidays to think about, it's like, well, I don't care about how the weather, I just want it to be nice. So that's where it gets really awesome is January, February, March here.
So what brought you to, Phoenix? Like what drove you to move to Phoenix?
Yeah, I mean, I came down due to a random family situation, and I just stayed here. It just became a home for me, and I grew to love it. I still love to travel. I still like to get to places like Colorado. My wife and I were in Breckenridge a couple of years ago and spent the week for 4th of July. Absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. And it's like, those are the types of things that kind of make us like, hey, you know what? Like maybe we should get back to Colorado here and there too. There's so many places that we like to visit and we're like, I'd consider that. But there's a lot to love about here. I'm sure we're gonna do another video, just Arizona versus Colorado in general. So make sure to check out that too, where Patrick's gonna lead that one. It'll probably go in a whole different direction, but we're gonna probably talk about just the states combined because there's a lot to think about, not just outside the cities in general. So yeah, there's a lot to love about it. I mean, I think there's a lot of people watching that probably is like, hey, you if there's something that's really important to you on one or the other, then you got to go with your gut and just go with that. And I think if you're the right personality, you're going to love wherever you live. It's just the people like, hey, I really want to be around snow sports versus I really want to be around the desert and kind of doing outdoor activities on that. I mean, that's probably a key reason. Some of the job opportunities, but man, we've got so many similarities when it comes to the people, the amount of people moving in, the housing market going absolutely nuts, the amount of companies coming here, and to both Phoenix and Denver. It's crazy, the similarities.
Yeah, no, really. It just seems like you open up the newspaper and there's a company either relocating or putting a headquarters here, or Boulder, or Denver.
Yeah.
Fort Collins is we're attracting some good talent, some good companies. We're also building and developing a lot of, not we aren't, the companies are here developing and growing and providing good paying jobs. But yeah, I think clearly both Phoenix and Denver and Colorado and Arizona are places that are just booming for a lot of different reasons. You don't have to be in New York City or Philadelphia, and you can go be somewhere where you want to go live outdoors and not be surrounded by, a million people within a mile.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Especially with what has happened over the last couple of years. I think it's because I think we both. I'm a fan of Colorado as well as Arizona, so I can talk about the pros about both places all day long. Let's really give people some things that maybe we don't like the things that maybe we go through year to year that are like, man, this is annoying. Anything on your end that you just like, you have to warn people about when it comes to Colorado or in Denver, Fort Collins in general?
Yeah, I think one thing I remember flying into Phoenix and seeing, interstate 6 lanes wide. It's almost as you guys were built for this, population growth and all these people coming in. And I can't speak to that, but I can tell you that in northern Colorado, Fort Collins, Denver, our traffic situation is just miserable.
Is I-25 still like 2 lanes going on?
Yeah, I mean, they're doing this 19-mile expansion from there. It'll finally be from Fort Collins now pretty much to Denver, which will be 3 lanes, but it's 10 years behind where it should be. Yeah. And, the construction still has I think a year or a year and a half out just for this 19-mile stretch. But then even, I've got a good buddy who's got a retail down in Greenwood Village, and he won't leave his house here in Fort Collins until about 9:30, 10 o'clock, just because he's like, I'm not leaving at 7 a.m. to go meet in hours of traffic to get to the office or the retail at the same exact time that I would have. So I would just say that one thing that Denver and, Fort Collins are struggling with is this rapidly growing population and the traffic that comes with it and the housing demand that isn't there. That's, skyrocketing these prices is it's definitely, I would say, teetering on a con right now is this population growth, but specifically the traffic.
Yeah, that makes sense. That was one thing we noticed when we were there a couple years ago. I was greatly surprised at how crazy the traffic was driving anywhere around in Denver and even getting up into the mountains. I mean, it was pretty crazy. And I mean, we have our traffic problems here, but like you said, I don't think that Arizona has their all their stuff together when it comes to managing our traffic issues. But we have expanded quite a bit as far as. And I think having the cities so spread apart from each other and not having, I don't know, it's just always been on this grid system that's kind of worked or whatever. But the traffic here compared to some of the areas I've been to is pretty decent. It's not ever perfect, and there's definitely times and places where you can find some bad traffic. But in comparison, I think we typically end up being in a better spot.
Well, if you're driving up to like Breck or Keystone or Vail and you're leaving on a Friday afternoon, good luck. And coming back on a Sunday afternoon after the long weekend, I mean, I'm more of a steamboat person myself, and I'll take the Poudre Canyon because for me, even though it's a twisty, windy road, it's gorgeous, one, but two, there's no traffic, and the slower drive with the scenery makes up for not having to deal with bumper to bumper. So I don't ever touch that I-70. Especially on a Friday afternoon during ski season.
Yeah, smart. At least you have a couple options. It's nice to have like a scenic route that you can go to.
Definitely.
Some of the other areas that we have, there's maybe not as many options. But and then, I mean, weather-wise, because I think from a Phoenix perspective, I think the biggest con in my mind, which everybody talks about it, is the summers and the summer heat and just kind of. You can get outside. If you've got a pool, you're going to spend a lot of time in your pool, but it starts to wear on you during the summers, especially when everybody else around the country, obviously, again, I joke about this a lot because people complain that I complain about the weather. in Phoenix, but they're like, hey man, it's awesome like so much of the year and you're complaining about the summer. And I'm like, well, it is what it is. But I like being able to take my kids to nice places during the summer when they're not in school. And that's a
Sure.
challenge in Arizona.
Oh, I wouldn't even have, it's, yeah, especially I wouldn't even have thought about that honestly with kids because kids are out during that time. So there would be some desire to go spend some time outdoors. And
Can't go to the park. I mean, the parks are just like blazing hot. Like everything is, it's just not comfortably, it's everything you try to do is inside where there's air conditioning and just kind of limits what you can do if you're staying in town. And it obviously gets a little bit more costly because, everything you try to do is like, hey, well, you got to go to this spot and you got to pay to get in and that type of thing. Yeah. I mean, before kids, it's like you just drank by the pool all day during the summer. You're like, that's
yeah.
great. But
Now, on one thing, actually, I never even thought about this because Colorado doesn't have. They asked me if they were coming from California. They moved here from California. And they were asking if there was anything specific that they had to do with like the oil that they put in their cars because like they had some friends that were in Wisconsin that had to put a certain type of oil in their car so that different parts of their vehicle didn't freeze. And I was like, I've honestly never even heard of that. Now, is there anything that you need to do in Arizona with like the heat that like a specific tire that doesn't like melt on the roads or is there anything or is that not, it doesn't get that.
I don't think there's too much. I mean, it does make it pretty easy from a car main. I mean, obviously, if you're the car being left out in the heat, it's going to deteriorate the car a little bit easier. So, if you don't have a garage and you got a car that sits outside, and the sun just beats down not only on cars but anything you leave outside. It's the life of that, whatever you have outside, whether it's your outdoor, patio furniture or anything you got outdoors that just takes a constant beating from that sun. Yeah, that's going to be an extra cost of replacing those items every couple of years after the sun just does some damage to them. So, yeah, that's
Gotcha.
definitely something to consider. Man, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of other things. Cost wise, I think one of the good things, and this kind of goes back to your traffic situation and talking about it, we don't have toll roads here. And I know you guys have the toll roads there. I don't know if that's a huge cost. I was doing a, Denver or not Denver. I was doing a Colorado versus Texas and talking about how much the toll roads cost were and what they were paying over there. It sounded like it was a massive amount of money for some people for paying for toll roads. I don't know if you've had to deal with that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're taking it on a daily basis, like there you have the E470 pass, which especially if you're taking it on a daily basis, you absolutely have to be signed up for that because it's basically double if you aren't signed up for that pass. But actually, they'll have their first reduction. I just read this. They'll have their first reduction coming into 2022 and a pretty decent reduction. But like you could assume, like for me going to the airport, I've got to go through two tolls on E470.
Yeah.
So it's basically like $6 or $7 going there and $6 or $7 coming back. So an extra $15.
Yeah.
But like there's no traffic. So rather than going all the way down I-25 and then east on I-70, don't have to deal with traffic and save probably, I think anywhere from like 10 to 15 miles. So you won't save a ton of gas by any means, but like the headache of
like
not
30 to 45 minutes worth of time though.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. It was a game changer for us when E470 came in. And, but like on a daily basis, you're absolutely going to want to get the pass and could get expensive. And it's something to where, yeah, your cost of living is going to have to take that into consideration, especially with gas prices recently. It's like shit. Like,
what do you guys do with gas prices right now? I mean, I think everybody's going crazy. There's lots of everybody's up in arms about gas prices right now. But what are you guys paying like regular premium like around there right now?
330 for like regular unleaded, and then you'll go up to 340, 350. But comparatively to a year ago when it was like 225, it's a pretty decent little price tag. And for me, I've got a truck that's got 35 gallons. So, it adds an extra 30, $40, each time I fill up, and I'm filling up twice a month. So like, I'm not too much, but still an extra $70 a month, over a year, that's an extra $800. So it's a relatively
prices. I mean, I was at one pump the other day because I usually go to Costco to get my gas where you can save a little bit. I think it's probably like $3.50 for regular, about $4 for premium right now just at Costco. But I went to one right down the street from my house. It was $4.80 for premium. And
Oof.
I've never seen that here. I'm like, am I in California right now? Because this doesn't seem right. I can't
Has
imagine what
it,
they're paying in California right now.
man, yeah, has it always been kind of a premium state as far as like for gas, or is that just kind of like a new, something kind of new that
Well, as far as how much it is,
just as like comparatively to Colorado? Because I always thought, yeah, like Colorado was one of the more expensive states, and then California was the most
yeah.
expensive state. But it sounds like maybe Phoenix is a little bit of a premium right now.
I mean, we're probably in the middle, I would
Yeah,
imagine, but it sounds like we're more expensive than what you guys are paying right now, at least here in the Phoenix area. Yeah.
it's been changing so fast. Honestly, it's like,
Yeah, I
man,
mean
shoot.
that's I think, a month ago it was probably, 50, 75 cents less per gallon. So it's rapidly changing quite a bit, but we'll see how far it goes with all this inflation.
How much of a commute, like a daily commute, are like does somebody in Phoenix like are expected to do? Like, what's like a daily commute look like on that?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what people are doing. Obviously, we're still seeing a lot of remote work. I think you do have people that are living in some of the suburb areas. They're out in Mesa, Chandler, Gilbert on the east side, or they're out in Surprise, Glendale, Peoria. If they're driving into Central Phoenix, then you're probably going to have about the 30 to 45-minute commute, depending on where you're coming from. That Central Phoenix area, it tends to get the most traffic, so that's where, during your your rush hour times, you're going to see the most challenges. Outside of that area, it's pretty free flowing. But a lot of people live in Phoenix, live in Scottsdale, work in Phoenix and Scottsdale, and probably don't have to deal with that. But I'd say that for the people who live on the areas that might be a little bit further out of town, you could have those a little bit longer commute times. But it's not. I mean, outside of, I don't see anybody or hear about anybody trying to drive like an hour to get anywhere anymore.
Gotcha. Yeah, I would say that's one thing that, I was just actually in a meeting just right before this with a realtor down in Denver, and what you were talking about, affordability. And there's no such thing in Denver as far as affordability goes.
Yeah.
There's no entry price point unless you're looking at like a condo or a townhome. And so people are going out to Erie or Broomfield or down further south to Colorado Springs or up north to Fort Collins to get a more affordable single family detached home. But then they're, replacing that with having to, make that daily commute. Fortunately, remote work has taken effect. And whether that's like, all right, you're going to only have to go into office 2 days a week or 3 days a week and work from home 2 or 3 days a week. But still, yeah, that affordability factor is definitely an issue and a thing here in Denver, especially if you're a first time home buyer. Those millennials that are coming in to buy, well, you're either buying a townhome condo or you're looking out at the burbs, anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes out minimum.
What are you guys averaging like for your area price point wise right now? Do you have an idea and that, like, how much that's changed over the past year?
So I can only speak to Fort Collins on that, but we're about 20%, 22% above where we were about a year ago. We're at
Yeah.
about $530 to $550,000 median price point for a single family detached home,
Yep.
which it was not even, it was probably 2019 that, me and my dad, we invest, and we were talking to each other, and we were thinking that $500,000 was just going to be this barrier. And we weren't going to be able to overcome this barrier of $500,000 for years to come, just based off of what type of incomes people here in Fort Collins and Northern Colorado were generating. It ultimately gets down, can you afford that mortgage?
Yeah.
But, we got hit with 2020 and put the real estate market on booster rockets. And all of a sudden we're seeing 530 to 550.
Yeah.
How about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty close. Like, I think our median price as of last month was right, or the average sales price was at 515. I think the median price is more around the 410 range, and that's considering the entire metro area, which is all of Maricopa County. So you're getting in the Scottsdales and everything that's going on, Scottsdale PV, certain parts of Phoenix that are the higher, multi-million-dollar stuff included, with some of the outskirts that maybe where you might be able to find something decent in the 3 to 400K range. But the stuff I'd say under 3 is almost next to non-existent. And unless like you said, you're trying to find like a little condo or something like that, and then half of them
Right.
can't even finance. So it's
Right.
So it gets a little bit challenging, and we're in a huge investor market as well. There's a
I was just
lot
going to
of
ask that when you were talking about financing. I know, yeah, that Phoenix and Scottsdale and that area is definitely driven or has received a lot of investor dollars.
Yeah, and I was going to ask it because I mean we get a lot of Airbnb money coming in, and so short-term rentals, like a lot of just people who like are looking to invest in homes, and they're like, hey, the rental market is great right now, so we can either find a property and make some money turning it into a short-term rental, or we can even long-term rentals are doing well. Do you guys have a huge short-term rental market? I would imagine you would, but I don't know if that's a huge factor on your market.
Yeah, definitely. There was a buddy of mine who had a townhome down in downtown Denver, turned it into an Airbnb, basically tripled what his mortgage was, and literally moved in with his parents just based off of the income that he was generating from the Airbnb that he
Yeah.
bought in downtown Denver. Now in Fort Collins, we had an ordinance put in about 3 years ago because I was actually operating three of my own personal rentals as Airbnbs, and they were great. But I wish I would have had the foresight to know how in demand they were going to be.
Yeah.
But the juice wasn't worth the squeeze for me because I was actually operating the Airbnbs at that
Yeah.
time, which was, I was younger and
A
dumber.
lot of work.
Yeah, a lot of work. And but they put this cap on Airbnbs to only specific zones, which are really just commercial zones in Fort Collins.
Okay.
So there's such a limited amount and supply. But you go on there, and I mean, people are crushing it on 30-day rentals for like executive rentals, furnished rentals, and Airbnbs. Shoot, you really got to want the area and the vibe. You might get a little bit of a discount for that Airbnb if you're going to put six people, sure. But otherwise, staying in a hotel is, the Airbnb used to be like an affordable solution to offset, the hotel cost, but not anymore. Not here, at least.
Well, but I look at it too. I mean, hopefully, like there's part of me like I'm one of those people. Like I like when people have the opportunity to get into the real estate investment market, have ability to make some money and give somebody some value by turning their property into an Airbnb for people who want to rent it. But I also like people being able to afford homes too to live in. So it's like finding that balance of like, hey, so maybe there should be a little bit of regulation, what it sounds like you guys have there in Fort Collins, to be able to allow more people to buy places to live as well, because that's where it's gotten crazy as far as the supply. I mean, we just have such a low supply, and it's because if you got a bunch of people like, hey, I can make money off of rentals, then you got no places for people to buy and live.
Yeah, and that was one of the big drivers of the decision. Was we already had at that time, Fort Collins was still a hot market, as I believe Phoenix and Arizona was, but we were having issues with supply on the rental and ownership side of things, and they did have kind of the foresight to see that becoming an issue. And so at that time, gosh, I can't remember, there was only like 400 or something like that, but the trajectory of what it was going at, how many we were increasing each year, was an issue. So yeah, it's very difficult. There's a licensing here in Fort Collins, and those licenses are very valuable.
Yeah.
And if you have it, great, but otherwise there's really not too much options for people to turn their properties into Airbnb. So it's kind of not even a topic of discussion if you're talking to a seller or a buyer. They ask, and it's pretty much just like, probably not. Maybe a primary. So like we distinguish between primary and non-primary Airbnb. Yeah. So if somebody lives there at least 6 months of the year, they can turn it into an Airbnb the other 6 months. But not many people do that. We aren't necessarily a kind of a snowbird community that you might see a little bit more of in that Phoenix, Arizona, Scottsdale, Arizona, where people might only be there for 6 months. Pretty much most of the people that are living here in Northern Colorado are going to be primary residents year round here.
Yeah, makes sense. We could talk for a few hours, I'm guessing, but I want to, kind of wrap this all up and kind of really kind of dial in. And for those of you who want more information, we're going to have a second video talking about Arizona versus Colorado. Make sure to check that out if you want to get more information from us. But Patrick, like, what do you think the best for people that are kind of comparing Phoenix versus Denver? What would you recommend checking out? Any resources? Obviously, they should give us a call and kind of talk to us. We could talk you through it. But anything you recommend?
The biggest thing that I would look at is, are you going to be able to provide, yourself an income to be able to afford the housing? Really, the other day-to-day cost of living aren't too bad. We just discussed gas was a little bit less expensive than in the Phoenix area. Grocery, shopping, restaurants, all of those utilities, all those different things really aren't too bad. Or property taxes, insurance, it's just not too bad if you can overcome that housing cost of renting and or owning. And so the biggest thing that I would discuss is am I moving because of a job or relocation? And is that income going to be sufficient enough to supply me the ability to, one, put a down payment down and afford the monthly mortgage? Or two, if I'm remote working, does that job, income, remain the same? And I'm seeing a lot of people who are coming from major metros, California, New York, Florida, Boston, Seattle, who can afford these houses easily, but others that are coming from the Midwest who maybe can't afford because whether their just incomes aren't big enough. So I would just say the biggest thing that I would discuss with myself is, am I going to be able to have the same type of lifestyle or better lifestyle just based off of the cost of living?
Yeah, it used to be where so many people could come to probably either one of our areas, and you would get maybe a little bit better lifestyle for a little bit more affordable. That has shifted quite a bit. I think that shifted in almost every market, and
right.
We just happen to be in two of the ones that have had the craziest the last couple of years. So I mean, it's been an eye-opening experience for all of us and that type of thing. But we live in markets that have a lot of desirable things, and so I can understand why people would want to look and compare both. There are pros and cons of both. I would say, overall, if you like snow and you like seasons, you might be leaning towards Colorado. If you don't like seasons and you don't like snow, then you might lean towards Phoenix. I don't know, but it could be as simple as that. But I think there's so many things, other factors, and again, lifestyle, that type of thing you want to know about. Give us a call and reach out to us. We'll leave our contact info below. I'll leave. I've got Patrick's info if you're watching my channel. He'll have mine if you're watching his. And reach out and just kind of talk to us. We'll talk you through it. Our goal is to help find the right area for you and your family, what's good for you. We're going to try to guide you guys when it comes to that. Patrick, anything else you want to say before we sign off?
No, man, I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to the next video. And again, ultimately providing value. I think that's the biggest thing is letting people decide for themselves. Is it a good fit? And I think it would be a great time talking to you about, Arizona a little bit more, what you can and cannot expect.
Or like we said before, you just buy a place in both areas if you can afford to do that.
Perfect.
All right, Patrick. Thanks again. You guys will see you on the next video.
So there you have it, everybody. Hopefully that video really showed you some perspective from people in the area considering real life stories and different things that you might not necessarily can Google or just look up, but from perspectives of those that are really boots on the ground. So again, go check out Greg's channel, Living in Phoenix, Arizona, if you are considering moving there, or if you're considering moving to northern Colorado, Fort Collins, Denver even. Reach out, give me a call, text, email. We are licensed real estate agents in the state of Colorado, as is Greg in the state of Arizona. So feel free to reach out to either one. And again, hopefully this video really has shown you guys different perspectives for Phoenix and Arizona and Denver and Colorado. Take care, guys. Until next time.